Good afternoon. My name is Tom Thorpe, a Unity minister and a longtime friend of both Claudell and Dave. Claudell and I shared half of ministerial school together. I was in the class of 1985, and she was in the class of 1986. We had met several years before ministerial school in Miami, Florida, where we both found unity, and it's been a good, long road, almost 40 years. I want to begin by thanking every one of you who took the time today to be here. You know, life is full of transitions. There's births, there's graduations, there's weddings, and then there's events like today. We know that people care for us when they stand by us in difficult times like these. And we're going to celebrate Claudell's life today. If you have the program, you see that we'll have our opening prayer, followed by what's a really nice video, and followed by your opportunity to say what you need to say about your memories of Claudell, and then we'll close. So, feeling the sacredness of this place, a place where Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, the co-founders of the Unity movement, both spoke, and a place where hundreds, literally hundreds of Unity ministers spoke. Here in this place, we begin with one of our classic Unity prayers called The Traveler, written by James Dillard Freeman after the passing of his own wife. Let us pray. She has put on invisibility. Dear Lord, I cannot see, but this I know. Although the road ascends and passes from my sight, that there will be no night. That you will take her gently by the hand and lead her on along the road of life that never ends, and she will find it is not death, but dawn. I do not doubt that you are there as here, and you will hold her dear. Our life did not begin with birth. It is not of the earth. And this that we call death, it is no more than the opening and closing of a door. And in your house, how many rooms must be beyond this one, where we rest momently? Dear Lord, I thank you for the faith that frees, the love that knows it cannot lose its own, the love that looking through the shadows sees that you and she and I are ever one. Amen. And now we have a beautiful story of a beautiful soul. Let's see the PowerPoint now, Dave.
Here I stars and the sun. I came down from heaven and I danced on earth, and Bethlehem I had my birth. Dance then, whatever you may be, I am the Lord of the dance, said he, and I'll lead you all, wherever you may be, and I'll lead you all in the dance, said he. Dance for the sky from the far sea, they would not dance, they wouldn't follow me, so I danced for the fishermen James and John, came with me and the dance went on. Dance then, whatever you may be, I am the Lord of the dance, said he, and I'll lead you all, whatever you may be, and I'll lead you all in the dance, said he. I danced on the Sabbath and the pure of the day, the holy people, they said it was a shame, they whipped at the strip and then they hung me high, left me there on a cross to die. Dance then, whatever you may be, I am the Lord of the dance, said he, and I'll lead you all, whatever you may be, and I'll lead you all in the dance, said he. I danced on the fire and the sky turned black, it's hard to dance with the devil on your back. They buried my body and thought I'd gone, but I am a dance and still go on. Dance then, whatever you may be, I am the Lord of the dance, said he, and I'll lead you all, whatever you may be, and I'll lead you all in the dance, said he. They cut me down and cut a leap up high, I am the light that will never, never die, and I'll live in you if you live in me. I am the Lord of the dance, said he. Dance then, whatever you may be, for I am the Lord of the dance, said he, and I'll lead you all, whatever you may be, and I'll lead you all in the dance, said he. Dance then, whatever you may be, I am the Lord of the dance, said he, and I'll lead you all, whatever you may be, and I'll lead you all in the dance, said he. Dance then, whatever you may be, I am the Lord of the dance, said he, and I'll lead you all, whatever you may be, and I'll lead you all in the dance, said he.
That picture's going to stay with us, Dave? I hope it does. We come to a time of sharing now, and I'm going to share remarks from one of Claudell's classmates and good friends, and then the microphone will be open for anybody who wants to share a thought, a memory. This is, after all, a celebration of life, and Claudell was full of life, and our lives, many of us, were full of Claudell. This is from Brenda Frost, a Unity Minister, class of 1986. And here's what she said. Claudell, there is so much to love about you. We were best friends. It was the best of times, and it was the worst of times. We were in ministerial school 1984 to 1986. We took long walks together, spent hours on the phone, ate together, complained together, worked very hard together, and prayed together. And we ate tons of popcorn at the movies. We saw ourselves as the friends of Jesus, Mary and Martha. You were Martha, always busy helping out with your music and serving the Unity community, while I was Mary, staying at home and praying and working at Silent Unity, praying. There was a tremendous amount of work during that time in school, from Sally Taylor's Bible class to Marvin Anderson's metaphysics. You were always wonderfully childlike and fun and absolutely brilliant. I just loved being in your presence. And during the most trying time in my career as a Unity minister, you were there. I came back to Unity Village for a difficult meeting with the Association of Unity Churches in January. You helped me prep for that meeting. Then, when it was time for the meeting, you stood outside in the freezing cold in snow gear and prayed in the cold, in the snow. You were right there for me, right outside the window. Needless to say, the meeting went very well. In the years following, in person or on the phone, we would always just take up right where we left off. I hate to have you gone from our sight, yet I know if you came back to us today for a visit, you would say, it's glorious here, and don't worry about me. And Claudell, don't worry, we will watch over that magnificent husband of yours. And so don't worry about tears if there are any. I discovered years ago that tears are holy water most of the time. So tears can be part of a joyous celebration. So whoever is going to speak next, just come on up to the microphone, stand right here, and know that your words and your beautiful faces are being recorded. All right, we won't give out numbers or anything, just somebody take the mic.
Hi, my name's Brad Langdon, Reverend Brad Langdon. And Claudell is my friend. She was my mentor. She's my instructor. And part of what Barbara Frost wrote is so very true of my own experience. While I was in ministerial school, it was the best of times, and it was the worst of times. Those who've been through it or associated with it know that you're in a crucible of fire. And the times would come when I would be complaining, and I would be upset, and I would be distressed, and Claudell was always the calming waters for me. And after graduation, we still stayed in contact, and we lived in Indiana at the time. Home was Colorado, and as we would go back and forth, we would always stop, have meals with Claudell and Dave and visit, keep up to date. I loved her very much.
Hi, I'm Reverend Deborah Fraunfelter, and my life would not be the same without Claudell. Members of a spiritual study group that I was in kept encouraging me to come to their church, Unity Church of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, because they knew that I would just love their minister. Well, it took me months to finally get up the courage to do it, but when I did, they were right. I went in, and there was a woman who was a minister. My heart said, yes, finally, a female minister. And then she started the service. And she started it by singing, "This is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it." And my heart just sang too. I felt such an experience of love and wisdom throughout that service, and I felt the presence of God through Claudell, through those others who she called to serve along with her, whose Spirit called to serve along with her. My husband, Ed, reminded me last night that he remembered when I came home from that service that day, that I shared with him about Claudell and about her singing and about how special it was. So from that moment on, my life changed. All of us who know her, and we saw in that how important music was to her, how much a part of her it was. Some of my favorite memories of her are her singing, and we got to hear her singing her own song, My Dedication, and of her playing the piano. There was a grand piano sitting over here when I was going through various Unity education programs, and Claudell was often the person there, sitting there playing such beautiful music for all of us as one of her many ways of serving. And her playing the guitar. And you saw one of my favorite pictures of her dressed with that huge balalaika in front of her. And I had the privilege of going to Russia and bringing home a balalaika, which she taught my husband to play a little bit of and shared that love with her too. It was many, many years later that I learned that she wrote my dedication. I had been singing that song, and it just always moved me and spoke to my heart. But it's a testament to her humility that she didn't share that. But she finally told me about it and the story behind that she wrote that while she was waiting to hear whether she had been accepted into the Unity Ministerial School. And she did that as a call, a feeling, and I'll just reread a few of the words. Here I am, Lord, use me, guide me, fill me, take me, lead me by your will. Here I am, Lord, ready to follow, to serve you, to love you, to be you in this world. To me, that is the core of Claudell, because I feel that she felt that calling and she strived to be that, to serve God in so many ways, as a minister, as a teacher, as a mentor, as a colleague, and as a friend. Her love, her caring was evident in everything she did. I remember her as a minister at Unity Church of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. I loved her ability to describe spiritual teachings and principles in a practical way, and then to share them and live them in her own life. I remember clearly when she told us that she was ready to find a life partner. And she described very clearly the characteristics that she wanted to experience in a life partner. And she asked us to hold them with her, to envision them, to affirm them. And we did that for months. And then lo and behold, she came in and said, "Thank you, it's worked." And it was her husband, Dave, and she was just so full of joy, and it was such a delight to see and experience that joy in her, because that's how she was as a minister and a person. She lived those teachings, and she made them practical as part of our lives. And she shared her love of Bible, and she brought in the beauty and the power and the inspiration of other sacred scriptures. She shared her passion for biblical archaeology and history and enriched us through sharing that as well. And then there was her creativity and her fun. One of my first Sundays at Unity Church of Harrisburg, she walked out in a red devil's costume, complete with pitchfork and blinking lighted horns. And I thought, oh my, this is a very different type of church. And we saw her in her Star Trek costume. She wore that. And I also remember another time where she came out with a big fluffy bathrobe, bunny slippers, and her hair in big curlers, and sat in a rocking chair. And then there were the Care Bears, and the bears that we brought in and collected and shared out into the community. Such fun in so many ways. Her thing that I really admire about her was her authenticity and her honesty. Even when she wasn't able to be as centered as we who serve feel called to be, she shared that honestly and openly, and I admired that courage, because she called us all and allowed us all to be our human selves as we were striving to express more of our divine selves, and that the beauty of our humanness was important as well. Not only was she fabulous as a minister in a church setting, she was also a person who recognized and called forth gifts in others and developed leaders. While she was a minister at Uni of Harrisburg, she encouraged quite a few people to go out and pioneer churches in neighboring parts of Pennsylvania. And she encouraged many of us to become licensed uni teachers, and I was among those people. I felt so fortunate to be called forth to serve in that way. As a teacher, she shared that wisdom that came from her experience as a successful minister. And she also continued to develop leaders. She was a lifelong learner, and I observed her constantly trying to find new books, new things, the latest trends that she could share so that she could enrich and empower those who were also trying to become a Unity minister and to serve in that way. And there were so many people who would love to be here and express to you the difference she made in their life as a wise counsel, as a coach, as a mentor, to call forth the true gifts that they have and the beauty of their souls to serve. And that lifelong learning went on even after she retired, because she found I Am Heart meditation. And I witnessed the healing, the peace, the joy that brought to her. So when she said she wanted to become certified and she needed a small group to practice with, I was, right, yes, I would love to be part of that. It was one of her last gifts to us in that way. I am so profoundly grateful for the positive difference that Claudell has made in my own life. I would not be standing here today sharing with you had it not been for Claudell. Being able to serve in whatever ways that we were called to through the beauty of our own souls and our own gifts. One of the last real conversations I had with her when she was in hospice, she said with great passion, she said, I so wish that all of us could let go of fear and experience and love the joy and beauty of our souls, to be love in this world. The day before she passed, as I was sitting with her, I suddenly felt this powerful, transcendent energy of love. I can't adequately describe it in words, but I felt it holding her hand. I felt it, and I knew that she was experiencing that love and that she was being it. Every cell of her body was that love. So Claudell's love still lives, and it lives in each one of us. And it's her greatest wish for each of us as well. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I knew Claudell from birth. I'm her older cousin. She has always been part of my life and my daughter's life. She has brought so much joy to our family, even though sometimes when she was little, she would stick her tongue out at me and try to take my toys I'd just gotten for Christmas or something. Her birthday was on Thanksgiving, so we always had a big celebration for Thanksgiving. And then Christmas, of course, we had a great celebration. But you know, she could be really ornery too. I had a lot of fun with her. And my older cousin Lester, he was 3.5 years older than me, and I was 14 months older than Claudell, so we always called her the little kid, you know. But I had the privilege of being with her through all the fun, the Mickey Mouse Club. We got these outfits, and we got our shirts, and we would go over and practice the Mickey Mouse Club, you know, who's forever years. And we were really happy about the Mickey Mouse Club. And then she got into Job's Daughters. And this really became a calming influence on her. And she had me do the Ode to the Flag when she was, you know, voted into Bethel's. When I was 17 years old, my father passed away. And my uncle is a minister. He came from New Jersey. He was a Methodist minister. He was 4 years younger than my father. He came from New Jersey to do the service for my dad. And Claudell went up to him. She was 16 years old, and she went up to him, and they had a really deep conversation. And she told him that she wanted to become a minister. I was 17, she was 16, and she knew then that this is what she had done and was going to become. Even though, as she grew up, she did study music, piano, guitar, dancing. She did all that, but I could see a look on her face when she was talking to my uncle that she really wanted to do this. And I didn't know if a woman could do it. But then I learned about the unity, and women were in unity, and women were doing wonders. And I think this, you know, is the beginning of when she really wanted to become a minister, right when she was a 16-year-old girl. And so she's meant everything to me. I didn't tell Dave this, but I was thinking of moving in with him, and then she got sick. Well, my husband died, and I thought, oh, well, gee, where should I go now? Oh, Claudell. Dave's really a great guy. I wonder if they would mind. And then she told me she had gotten sick, so I moved in with her instead. But I know she's in a better place, and she told me, the last thing I said to her, you know, she said, you know, Cheryl, I'm not afraid to die. She said, I told her, I said, well, they say they always save the best till the last. And I told her, I love you, and she said, I love you too. And that was our final talk. But you know, if you want to know anything about when she was a little girl, let me know. I can tell you.
Hi, I'm Ginger, her daughter, Claudell's cousin, third, fourth, I don't know, family. Okay. Literally, she's known me my entire life. But growing up, the visual son, Eli, stand up. That's a mini me. He's 9 and about 8, 9 years old when I was a child. You stay. And Isabel and Uncle John, Claudell's parents, would come from Florida, visit us in Savannah, Georgia, and then go see Claudell in Pennsylvania. And at that time, because we were so distant, Claudell was this figment, an imaginary person that all these adults talked about in the living room as I was his age. And, oh my God, David, do you still have the film of her growing up from Aunt Isabel and Uncle John, I can't imagine the hours that these parents filmed Claudell. Hours, days. I think we went, several months of them visiting, and we just sit there for like a couple hours just watching Claudell grow up. And I just thought, wow, Aunt Isabel was just over the moon about her. Just talked, and, I'm like, my parents don't talk about me. Like, that was kind of jealous. And I was like, who is this Claudell person? It's like, God, she get all the good toys in those films. She has all these great toys. I just want a Barbie. And they would just talk about what she was doing, all her schooling. They were in love with Claudell's achievements. And just hearing about it as a young child and growing up and watching it, I thought it was beautiful to see parents just, when they told me that Uncle John was not her biological father, I didn't think that was actually possible, because he loved her as his own. It was never a doubt. The Claudell visit, when I got to meet her, is when she had the strange husband. Sorry, number 2. And I was just like, I'm going to play. I'm peace out, And I'm glad that ended. Thank you so much. But I got to meet her, and she was very much just focused, very teacher-like. And I was like, yeah, whatever. I'm a kid. And she's like, oh, there's a kid, And then I got to, and it's funny, Aunt Isabel and Uncle John also brought recordings of her sermons and played them. Remember, I'm this age. And they were just everything. Her singing, her ministry, her achievements. And then you guys moved here. Then I eventually moved to Illinois. And then when Aunt Isabel and Uncle John came, I came. Hi. Claudell has family. I'm coming to see Uncle John and Claudell and Aunt Isabel. And I got to meet Claudell as an adult. I have found out we were so much alike. Kindred spirits. I had questions about my own faith and the things I knew, and I grew up as a Baptist, Christian, Southern Baptist, which is a horrible experience. And as a child, my Aunt Isabel and Uncle John make sure they took us to Unitary Church and exposed us. I mean, Claudell probably doesn't even know how many times we went to church just because Claudell was in Unity. They were like, hey, let's go to Savannah Unity Church, because Claudell does that, and she's not there, but we're going anyway to support her. And I didn't get it as a kid, and I didn't understand it, and then I just saw this conglomerate of religions together, and the love that you don't get in a Baptist church. You're either on the right path or you're on the wrong path, and that's just it. And that exposure was beautiful. And it also helped me believe. My mom grew up Methodist. My brothers and myself grew up Baptist. My dad is Catholic. And in the house, we just believe. And that's good enough. Just believe and make better choices and make the right choices based on your heart and kindness. And when I came up against, it was so funny, I just knew I could talk to Claudell about it, even though we really didn't have a conversation as an adult, as a child. And I learned about the King James Version, which is the main Bible in the Baptist faith, and finding out that King James just crossed stuff out and filled things in. And I lost faith in my religion because of that, because of the fact that people think they can control people's faith and belief in something more powerful than any of us. And I told Claudell, and I sat down with her in y'all's home and told her I was having a hard time. Like, in my heart, I believe in God. But because of XYZ, the King James Version, and how they altered it, it makes me hard to believe. Like, am I believing in something false? Is it a lie? And she sat down with me and she's like, Ginger, it's okay. It's okay. And she just talked to me about it and helped me mull things over and things I believed in. And she's like, okay, you believe in this, and that's okay. It's not wrong. It's who you are. You don't have to be condemned, because there was other parts that who I am believe in, but the Baptist faith would say I'm evil. And she's like, no, let's erase that and pencil in this. And it helped me so much. And then the things we talked about, the music and singing and the love of dance that we shared, and we're only like 5 days apart in our birthday. We're the same sign. So many things about us. It was so funny when one of the conversations we were really talking about things, she told me that she didn't get along with her parents. And I was like, what? She's like, well, we just didn't understand each other. And it threw me, because I was like, they loved her so much. And I guess they just didn't show it the way she could convey it. And it was just, I was like, wow, I was like, do you know how many Claudell stories I had to live through? Trust me, they loved you. They loved you more than you could tell. They just, I guess, didn't convey it in a way you can understand it. And I could see that, different generations. But they loved her, and we all loved her. There was another time I had a crisis, and I called Claudell. She was the one person I thought, she'll understand. She's family. She knows the back history. And I was so angry. I was so angry. And I told Claudell about this family secret, and I told her I don't understand. I don't understand why they couldn't tell me. I was like, the family, we're all accepting, we're all, I like, them, and she has Ginger. It was the 60s. We were all different. It was a different time. You got to understand the perspective. And she goes, your grandmother, Aunt Isabel, Uncle John, they were all very different and grew up so much. Don't be angry. Let it go and just love. And she gave me my faith back. And she gave me my family when I wanted to throw it away. Thank you, Claudell. I'm a better person for knowing you.
I have a little bit different relationship with Claudell. It came through her husband. Dave came to work for me with the Federal Aviation Administration. He was on my staff. And as we got to know each other, he told me about his wife being a minister in Unity, and he didn't know that I was in Unity. And I was in school, working full-time as a manager. Dave took over my IT staff. I am not a techie. So he was the greatest blessing in my life. He managed that staff very lovingly, very kind. It wasn't always easy, wasn't always pleasant, had to make some tough decisions. And he had to break things down to me in simple terms, for someone who's not a high-techy person. And so I just had to be here to honor you, Dave, because I got to know Claudell because of you. And I want to tell you how blessed I am that you're in my life, and how blessed I am that you brought Claudell into my life.
My name is Edwards Holliday. I was keeping it together until picture. My wife Melba traveled with me here today, and it's been a lovely sharing, quite a variety of tribute to Claudell. My interaction with her was largely in the 90s, in early, about 1990, 1991. And Reverend Fraunfelter, thank you for sharing, where are you, about how Claudell would show up in the services sometimes. To show up in a Red Devil outfit, that's badass. All right, I apologize for using that term to some of you here. And she was cool. She was the coolest minister I ever met in my life. She was kind and generous and real. We shared a lot together about a variety of things, about life and growing up, and just for a quick context to put the exclamation point on how she made a difference in my life. My mother was a Catholic, was raised Catholic, went to school Catholic, went to church. When I was about 5 years old, she decided to pursue a deeper relationship with God, with herself, and as a result, she left the church and started studying a wide variety of things. And just like Claudell, who is an amazing teacher and even a more amazing student, my mother was, and she explored all kinds of things. And as a young boy, I was very interested because I have a theoretical mind, and I think I was born to her for a reason, and so she would share all these things with me as she was learning them. And at the center of it was God, and God is good. And if something works for you, keep it. If it doesn't, then let go. And I learned about the Christ consciousness as a consciousness. And she shared with me how to read an aura, how to read palms, about astrology, about numerology, tarot cards, runes, spiritualist, mediums, pretty much you name how to use a dowsing rod as a child. And as a result, I had a lot of experiences in my life that have shown to me that, this ain't it, right? Life goes on in a very magical way. And so I was anti-going to church. I had some friends that, they would I would sleep over at their house. I would have to go to church with them on Sunday and dress up and sit on a hard bench and listen to someone, talk about this extreme and this extreme. And it was not an experience I wanted to continue. I didn't relate to that at all. I didn't find, at that time, it was like an obligation to have to go. And I kind of grew up that way. And then in the early 90s, and I was trying to remember why did I go to Unity in the first place, the Unity Church of Harrisburg. And it may have been a friend or a girlfriend or somebody at the time that recommended that. I was just in continuous search of a greater evolution of consciousness and my own spiritual truth, and I was willing to give it a try. Someone said, try Unity because they're more inclusive. I was at a Unitarian, they said, no, different. So I went to the Unity Church of Harrisburg, and I experienced Claudell. And the Unity faith is really cool. I stayed because of Claudell. Again, she's just the coolest person of the cloth I've ever met. And she just made it fun. And she made learning fun. And she opened my eyes to see things in a new way, some of the biases that I had, and to appreciate instead of judging a religion for what people find comforting in it, and there's a lot of pathways to God, and she was just she made it fun, and I was ended up being on the board of the Unity Church of Harrisburg. And what year did you get engaged to Claudell, David?
94, we were married in 96.
Okay, so I was remembering, I'm pretty sure I was at the visioning session that Reverend Deborah was referring to, and I also had a vision, and I had a very specific list too. And Claudell found you, and I found Melba. I found Melba because of Claudell. So of the many different masters and teachers and speakers and workshop leaders that she would bring in to the church to expose us to, which was a lot of fun. Excuse me. One time she shared a flyer of that was in purple colored text of Robert Tennyson Stevens, a program called Mastery about conscious language, and seemed a little. I'm pretty out there, but this is a little further out there. And I said, okay, let's go. So a bunch of us signed up for this workshop, and it was profound. And so I went through this multiple day workshop with Claudell, and then a group of us at Unity decided to pursue the study. Then we did another training. We had to go to Illinois or somewhere for a body energy language training, and learned that every single movement or cough or itch you make translates into something going on at the subconscious level. That was like 93. And then in 94, there was one called Outcome Facilitation in Asheville, North Carolina, and Claudell and several of us went down to that. There were maybe 4 or 5 or 6 of us that were at that. And that was profound, and that's where Melba was attending that same training. And that was a profound week. And then that was 1994. We got married in 1995, and Claudell married us. And because we have some people in our lives that help us with stuff, like an astrologer that timed our union to our advantage down to the minute, the day and the minute. Of course, Claudell was delighted to cooperate with that. And there was all kind of cloudy, raining that day, and then our service began, the clouds parted right down to that minute, I do, and then it was done, and then it rained. So I think the whole thing was just magically timed. And I will cherish her, and I know that she is here today. She is with us today, and I think it's possible for her to be with everybody at the same time. I just come from that omnipresence at that level, and that she is a soul newly cast in this world of spirit. I feel so fortunate to have met her. And I hope everybody here gets up and shares today, because I love hearing your stories. And we're not going back until tomorrow, so I have all night to listen to them. And with that, I'll say I love you, Claudell and Dave and Devin. And thank all of you for coming to acknowledge her today.
I'm Reverend Mark Fuss, and Claudell County was my faculty advisor when I was in ministerial school. I can remember sitting in her office and saying, "So what should I do? What should I take?" And this gentle smile, "I don't know. What do you think?" I was her colleague for 7 years at Unity Institute and Seminary after graduation. And I just want to say a word on behalf of her students. There are literally hundreds of Unity ministers and licensed teachers, maybe in the thousands, from her over 2 decades of teaching in the Unity movement in the different programs. Nearly every minister out there will have a story for you about Claudell's class. Her gift to me was, well, let me just say, I'm a linear thinker, and Claudell's classes were anything but linear. So learning to find the lessons and the joy in ministry, for that's what the gift that she gave us was, the practical side of ministry, the administration. I think every minister out there has been given the gift of learning about embezzlement in Unity churches, and their churches are better for that lesson. But she was a wonderful teacher and a wonderful person, and sorely missed.
I'm Reverend Kelly Isola, also a former student. Probably, as I look around the room, I'm pretty sure most everyone knew her a whole heck of a lot longer than I did. And I will say that few things come to mind when I think about Claudell, and one of them is, every once in a while I would come to the early morning class and think, you are way too chipper for this early in the morning. And it's that sticking your tongue out thing that she didn't give that up. I don't think she gave that up from childhood. While she was certainly, an instructor for me, and on faculty, she really was, for me, our relationship was really more about a spiritual companion than teacher or mentor. Because what I discovered was, what I learned years and years ago was that the brighter the light, the deeper the shadow. And what I learned in my connection with Claudell is that we shared quite a few deep wounds and traumas that were very much the same. And so Claudell became a place that we could share with each other, and that it was okay and be authentic and not have to and stick my tongue out if I wanted to. And even in the middle of that, that's why one of those last slides, I couldn't believe those words that said belief becomes beauty, because that's what she did with suffering. That's what, for me, in my experience with her, that's what she did with grief. That's what she did with wounds, that they're okay to have, and here's a place you can come and be with it and be authentic with it. And as you be with it, not trying to make it go away, but bring that childlike place of innocence that is never touched by any kind of trauma, when you can bring that to the place, to the space, through your faith, through people that love you, through whatever avenue you find, the belief becomes beauty. And I just was in awe when I saw that. Thank you for that. When I saw that, because that's Claudell. That's how she lives for me. She just was this place and this space. That made it okay to show up in all my glory and all my depravity. And it was all good. Because belief becomes beauty.
Is there anyone else that wishes to speak? All right. You know, I think of people, and when we begin to describe our impression of them, I like to start with a word. And with Claudell, you said the word, delighted. That was Claudell. I met Claudell in 1982 in Miami, Florida, at the church that is now called Miami Unity on the Bay, and she was delighted. She came out to apply for ministerial school, and she went through the experience of application, which was quite an emotional roller coaster, and she was delighted. She came out to school, and she didn't know it, but I had been picked on short notice to do the opening chapel service of the school year, which begins in July, or began in July. And I said to Claudell, I really would like you to play music at that service. And she was delighted. She came and played at the church that I pastored as a student minister in Sedalia, Missouri, a beautiful congregation that met in one of the most unusual synagogues I had seen up to that point. And she came and she played, and she was delighted. Now, she had her down moments. I mean, anybody who doesn't, I would check them for batteries. Our lives in ministry were apart for quite a while, but I remember one convention when I saw her and she had met Dave, and she was delighted, okay? And then came the day when she had the opportunity to join the faculty. And yeah, she was a little intimidated, but she was delighted. We served on faculty together from 1999 to 2013. And Dave and Claudell and my wife Barbara and I were married the same year. We became friends, did things together. And Claudell was always delighted, even when she was in her final illness. She was looking forward to doing some things, and she was delighted at the prospect. When Claudell was in hospice care at John Knox, there were many days when, because of pain and medication, she wasn't completely with us. But one evening, I was there, just me and her, and she was asleep. I sat in a chair close to the bed, just meditating, and Claudell opened her eyes and said, "What are you doing in my room?" And from that moment, for the next 3 hours, we had one of the most beautiful conversations of our lives together. She was fully present, fully lucid, and it was a wonderful, not so much a goodbye, but isn't it grand? All right? Isn't it grand? Now, loss is part of the price we pay for loving. We call it loss because it feels like loss, and on a certain level it is loss. But remember, all of the love that we shared with Claudell, it's ours to keep, and it's hers to keep. And if there were tough spots in the road, and there were, well, you know, time and faith and love have a healing effect. They do. Claudell asked me that day if I would officiate her memorial service, and you can't say no to a friend. She'd done so much for me. One of my fondest memories is a birthday I had when she was in ministerial school. My birthday's in the early spring, and we were at one of the county parks, and she gave me a gift that she brought along in a cooler. It was tabbouleh, one of my favorite foods, and we shared it together, and it was beautifully enjoyable. This room is full of Claudell's presence. My life, your life, is full of Claudell's presence, and it isn't going to go away. That's part of her immortality, that she will be alive in our hearts. And as we bring this service to a close, as a final prayer, I want to share some thoughts from Joel Goldsmith. Many of you know who he was. He was an ordinary guy whose parents got involved in Christian Science. So did he, and then he went his own way. And let's open our hearts to prayerful thoughts as we share these words. When we are no longer limited by the 5 physical senses and have attained even a measure of spiritual sense or Christ consciousness, we find ourselves unlimited in terms of here or there, now or hereafter. There is a going in and a coming out without any sense of time or space, an unfolding without degree, a realization without an object. In this consciousness, finite sense disappears, and the vision is without boundaries. Life is seen and understood as unfettered form and limitless beauty. Even the wisdom of the ages is encompassed in a moment. Death disappears, and once more we see those previously separated from us by this so-called impassable barrier. This communion is not the communication as understood in the teachings of spiritualism, but an awareness of eternal life untouched by death. It is the reality of immortality seen and understood. It is a vision of life without beginning and with no ending. It is reality brought to light. In this consciousness, there are no physical barriers of time and space. The vision encompasses the universe. It bridges time and eternity. It includes all being. It includes us. It includes Claudell. There is no separation. And I pray with great joy, affirming that each of our eyes will one day open to this truth. There is no separation. And in this awareness, we don't say goodbye so much as we say, Godspeed, Claudell. You've entered a new chapter. We bless you on your way. And we know that your Spirit will continue to bless us. Amen. The scattering, as you probably have heard by now, has been postponed. So immediately after a final song we will adjourn to the outer, I don't even know what they call it anymore. This room has evolved as much as I have, maybe more, this building, for a light reception and continuing the conversation and the stories that were started here. And I pray, affirming that this celebration of Claudell's life will go with each of us as we leave here today, not as a sad memory, but a happy one. Because this is the truth of love. Yes, there is grief, and the very mention of Claudell's name may bring a tear now, but be aware that the time will come when before that tear, there's going to be a smile, just like there always was. God bless you all, and thank you again for coming.